Lara.
Surname?
Croft?
Welcome back to Bandwagon fans. I'm Jeff, and I'm once again flying solo tonight, reviewing the 2018 Tomb Raider reboot. This one is starring Alicia Vikander as Lara Croft, and also starring Walton Goggins and Dominic West. The reboot version is directed by Roar Uthaug, and with a name like Roar Uthaug, you should only be directing Tomb Raider movies for the rest of your life. Anyways, enjoy a couple highlights from the trailers.
Brilliant.
Hello, Sprout. If you're listening to this, then I must be dead. I found something, a tomb called the Mother of Death. If Trinity succeeds, our world is in danger. Promise me you will stop them.
You shouldn't have come here. But I'm glad that you did.
Close the tomb once and for all. The fate of humanity is now in your hands.
All right, so Tomb Raider. This is the 2018 reboot, and I'm not too familiar with the video games. I played some of the demo, but I believe the video games themselves were kind of rebooted to give it a different aesthetic. And this movie definitely has a different aesthetic than the old Angelina Jolie movies. Overall, I enjoyed the movie. It was a pretty good time. There's some highlights and some parts that really need to be worked on if they're going to be going further with this franchise. But to start off with some of the good stuff. Some of the visuals of this were really stunning. The setting was really good. Really bought into where they were. Some of the stuff from the trailers, particularly like the scene where she's jumping off a boat in a lightning storm. I think that's taken directly off of the video game, and it was those kind of visuals that really got me pumped up to see this movie in the first place, and they don't disappoint. Alicia Vikander, I'm going to get into her a little bit more later, but overall, I really dug her performance. I dug her as Lara Croft. She definitely brought a physicality to the character that not many female leads would really, well, I will say not too many would be able to, but she really sold the physicality of Lara Croft. And from the beginning where she's doing some MMA stuff to throughout the movie where she's doing the running and jumping, you really buy that, or at least I did, really bought that she is capable of doing the stuff being done on screen as much as, you know, Bruce Willis and the Die Hard movies can. It's all fantasy, it's all over the top and unrealistic, but at least within this world, you buy that she's able to do the stuff. And also just really, there's an authenticity to her performance, which you don't necessarily see in these kind of pulpy, schlocky movies. So real strong performance from her, real strong performance from Walton Goggins as the villain. He has a motivation somewhat different than you typically see from the big bad villain. He's more of a middle manager, and he has a middle manager's type conflicts between wanting to go home at the end of the day and wanting to succeed at his job. So his motivation was a little bit different, but he portrayed it pretty well. Walter Goggins is always great. Back from the Shield days, he's just a phenomenal actor. So overall, this was Tomb Raider is kind of a adventure puzzle movie, kind of a cross between Raiders of the Lost Ark and National Treasure, and it really ties into its video game roots. So in the video game, there's two kind of play styles, or two kind of mechanics. One is the jumping around from ledge to ledge and looking for a ledge to jump to and looking for a handhold for Lara to jump to. And then there's the puzzles. And this is really where the yin and yang, or the good and bad of the movie comes in. On the good side, when it's just an adventure movie and she's running through the jungle with her bow and arrow, or she's jumping from one ledge to another, those scenes are really exciting and fun to watch. When it gets into the puzzle stuff, that's where the movie kind of starts to drag and it gets kind of boring, and it's kind of like the difference between playing a video game and watching somebody else play a video game. Now I know there's Let's Play series are pretty popular and a lot of people do watch those, but it's definitely not for me. I get no enjoyment watching somebody else play a video game. And one of the problems of translating those puzzle type things to a movie is when you're playing the game, you're the one actually solving the puzzles and you're working through it. Watching it in Tomb Raider, it's just hocus pocus. She goes to a door and you see her moving a couple levers and the door opens, but there's really no point for the audience to understand why this lever works or what the puzzle actually is. It's just somebody doing stuff and something happens for no apparent reason. So when it gets into the puzzle aspects, it kind of lost me. There was also an attempt in the movie to really draw this strong relationship between Laura and her father, and for me that all kind of fell flat. A lot of flashbacks to before her father disappeared, but overall just that whole dynamic just didn't work for me. Some of those, again, the choreography, particularly when it's an adventure movie. As I mentioned earlier, the movie starts with Laura Croft doing some MMA stuff in a gym, and that was really done really well. And then there's a scene later on in the movie where she gets into a fight, and it's something that I rail against all the time is poorly lit fight scenes. Now, this fight scene in particular was dark. This was set at night in a jungle, almost no light. But the little light they had, they used it to maximum effect, so that during the fight, you could actually tell what was going on. You could tell who was choking who was getting kicked. Just phenomenal choreography, phenomenal cinematography, phenomenal lighting, and it shows how to do a fight scene at night the correct way. So that was really fun to watch. Going forward, like I said, on the adventure side, when it's a straight adventure movie, more like Raiders of the Lost Ark or a Die Hard, and really, I'll get into a little bit more here in a minute, but there was a lot of stuff that was reminiscent of Die Hard. That kind of stuff, accentuate that going forward, because that's where the movie excelled. Getting lost in the trying to be a video game movie as opposed to just a good movie is where this movie really dragged. So they clearly are setting up trying to reboot the entire franchise and planning on sequels. I hope they do. I'm looking forward to seeing Alicia in this role again, but really got to go back and accentuate the stuff that worked well and drop some of the clunky video game mechanics that don't translate to film very well. Overall, a good movie, entertaining movie, worth going to see. I'm going to give it 3.5 out of 5 stars. I enjoyed it. I'd watch it again. This is one of those. This is a good summer afternoon. You're home. It's on TV. You're going to sit down and watch it. It's a pretty fun ride. With that being said, if you haven't seen the movie yet, go check it out, and then pause the video here, go check out the movie, come back, because I'm going to go through a couple little spoilers and talk about the end and a couple other things in the movie. So I'm going to do the fade out, and we'll do the fade in. All right, so for those of you that have come back, or those of you that stuck around, hopefully you've seen the movie, and hopefully you enjoyed it, at least somewhat, like I did. Just a couple things I wanted to get into. This one thing that really didn't work for me was the very end of the movie. So for people, the classic Lara Croft costume, the classic Lara Croft outfit, is the short shorts with the 2 pistols on her thighs. There was none of that in this movie. She wore pants the whole time, and it wasn't until the very, very last frame of the movie where she's in this pawn shop and she sees some guns, she picks up one, and then the very last frame of the movie is her holding two guns and says, "I'll take two." And it was just pandering to the game fans. It had nothing to do with the character established in this movie. There was no reason for her to want two guns. It was just wink, wink. You know, we know you wanted to see this, so here's your Easter egg at the very end of the movie. It could have been introduced in a later movie and actually set up why she would want two guns or anything, but it was just the movie was better. The movie was better than that little tag-on ending. It was completely unnecessary. And there was also at the very end a little twist to set up the sequel that just, like, you're better than that movie. You did just fine. You were a nice little movie. You can have a sequel. Just don't try to leave us hanging when we didn't want to be left hanging. There wasn't a great cliffhanger. And it wasn't something that was established earlier in the movie. It's just, hey, here, almost reminiscent of like the very end of Saw. That kind of come from nowhere twist ending that for at least for me, I didn't particularly care about. So anyway, that's the end of the movie. I didn't talk about this in the non-spoiler version, but the very beginning we believe that her dad has died. And then halfway through the movie, when she's on the island, she ends up finding her dad, and that whole relationship, it just fell flat. I didn't feel a lot of chemistry, and I didn't really care that her dad was still alive. And then of course he dies anyways, and you knew he was going to die anyways. So I think the movie would have been stronger had he not been there to begin with. But some people may have liked it, but for me, I just didn't care for it. Now, since I started doing these reviews, or since we've started this channel, I have stopped watching reviews of movies until I get to do my own review. I don't want to be too heavily influenced by other people's opinions. So, but I've caught a couple headlines, and I've caught some people talking about Alicia's appearance in the movie and how she was portrayed. I haven't gone in, I haven't read the articles, I haven't watched the video, so I don't really know what other people are saying. But I will say this from my perspective. I think the way she was portrayed was incredibly positive. This was a deep portrayal of Lara Croft. It was portrayed as a real person. As much as you can in these fantasy settings. Much in the same way, I think with the way the game was rebooted, it took on a more realistic tone, a less cartoonish tone. This is Lara Croft in this movie gets hurt. She feels pain, she feels anguish, and you see that on her body. And much in the same way that, say, John McClane, you see the damage and the scars in Die Hard. even though it's all cartoonish. You can tell that it's inflicting actual damage on a real person, and they have to overcome this pain. Alicia Vikander is a beautiful young woman. She's absolutely gorgeous, and within this movie, she is incredibly sexy, but she was never sexualized. The short shorts were replaced by pants, and even though she was wearing more a tank top, not really a sports bra, but a tank top, it was appropriate to the setting. If you're going off on a boat in a humid climate, which Hong Kong is, and southern Japan, you're going to be wearing a tank top. So it was appropriate to the costume was appropriate to the setting. It was appropriate to the character, and at no point there were no lingering shots of her butt. No long slow-mos of her whipping her hair around. Overall, it was a very positive performance and a very positive portrayal of a strong woman doing strong things, but still suffering the way John Rambo or John McClane would. So overall, a pretty good movie. I enjoyed it. I'd be willing to watch it again. It's not It's not the second coming of Casablanca, but it's not the movie they set out to do. They set out to make a fun adventure puzzle movie, and other than a few wonky scenes and a few things that don't translate to film well, they made the movie. They made a good movie of what they wanted to do. So I definitely recommend people go out and see it. And for those of you that have, what did you think about it? Leave your comments below. And as always, like and subscribe to our channel to stay up to date on all of our latest movie reviews. I'm Jeff, and get on the bandwagon.